It's official, diets don't work. And here, when I say diets, I mean any method of eating food you don't want to eat or not eating food that you do want to eat. But what other choice is there? The choice is to stop making these three major mistakes that most people don't even realize they're making. The first mistake is eating when they're not hungry, such as when they're stressed or bored. The key thing to remember here is that food does not alleviate stress or boredom. It can give you a temporary break from it, but certainly isn't a solution. For example, if you're stressed and you eat food, you might not notice the stress while you're eating, but as soon as you're done eating, you know the stress is going to come right back, or more accurately, it was there the entire time and you start noticing it again. If you're bored, same thing. Sure, the food can kind of stimulate your brain in some little way while you're actually eating, but as soon as you're done eating, you know the boredom comes right back. It's kind of like if I said, oh, you have the flu, here's a magic cupcake that cures the flu. And you have the cupcake, and while you're eating, it's so delicious that you forget that you have the flu. But then by the time you're done eating, you notice, oh, I still have the flu. You would conclude that the cupcake did not work. Mistake number 2, eating food not because it would make you feel good, but because it tastes good. Here's a critical thing about the brain. Your brain will take whatever criterion you think about and assume that's the one you want it to use. So if you think about taste, your brain will judge that food based on whether it tastes good or bad. If you think about how the food makes you feel, it will judge the food based on whether it makes you feel good or bad. Personally, I would rather feel good all day as a result of eating good, healthy food than have this just temporary, very short stimulation of eating something that's like high in sugar, for example. The problem is if you just think about the taste and don't think about how it feels afterwards, your brain will kind of say, okay, boss, no problem, and create compulsion to eat that unhealthy food. It comes down to how you think about the food. It is very, very easy to switch over to a healthy food lifestyle and actually like that food if you have the right mindset about it. A crazy thing about the brain is that your brain will tend to like whatever you do the most frequently, and specifically when it comes to food. If you started eating healthy food, your brain would adjust to it and start expecting it out in the environment, and that will actually make it taste good. 90% of what something tastes like is essentially psychological. And everyone knows someone or has been someone that said, oh hey, I was eating healthy for all this time, I felt great, it was good, but you just can't communicate those body feelings to other people. Meanwhile, you've got someone who never eats healthy, they feel kind of bad all the time, but to them it feels average because they're used to it. They just assume everybody feels that way. You must learn to take control of how you think about food, and then your brain will be more than happy to give you motivation to eat healthy food. Mistake number 3, eating more calories than your body is able to efficiently turn into energy. You can kind of think of this as there being 3 phases of eating. The first phase where you're hungry and you're eating and all that food can be turned into energy. Then there's a second phase where you're not hungry anymore, but you're not stuffed either. So you kind of eat on autopilot. Those are all calories your body will probably be forced to turn into fat. And then there's a third phase where you're stuffed, and most people don't go beyond that stage. But the problem is the damage is already done. You've already eaten more than your body can turn into energy, and so it's just forced to store the rest as fat. Notice how all 3 of these mistakes are essentially psychological mistakes, and you can correct them with your mindset. If you have the right mindset about food, you can want to eat food only when you're hungry, the correct type of food in the correct amount. Every single person I've ever talked to that's successful says, yeah, this is all psychological. It all comes down to what your mindset is. The only people that say it's not psychological are the people who have not been successful.